Well, welcome again to another Workshop Wednesdays brought to you by schoolofbookkeeping.com, where it's casual conversations for serious workflows, and there's nothing more serious than a deadline. So we have joining us today Jon Melloy from Practice Protect. He's playing the part of Carrie Khan today because Carrie's on vacation. So we're going to have this conversation about this FTC deadline that's looming over the accounting tax industry, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means for accounting practitioners. So, Jon, you want to talk a little bit about uh, just give a little introduction about who you are, what I mean, you're in tomorrow, which is really an interesting. You're from the
Yes.
future.
Yeah. Hello from the future. Yes. I'm John. I'm based in Australia, so hence why I'm a little bit ahead in terms of time zones. So yeah, really excited for this conversation. A bit about me. I work at Practice Protect, and at Practice Protect we are America's largest cybersecurity platform for CPAs, bookkeepers, and CAS firms. Um, Really, why we exist and how we came about is because cybercrime is increasing. I've been with Practice Protect for 6 years now, and every year I've been with Practice Protect has been a record year for cybercrime. It's just been growing exponentially. Records have been broken year on year. So the risk is really increasing. And as well, at the same time, you've got the compliance red tape and the different regulations that firms have to comply with increasing too. So that's really why we exist, to try to help firms navigate this. And try to give them a simple way to reduce their risk and ensure compliance.
So, what really if we just kind of unpack and we really just want to talk a real high level of what constitutes a cyber crime. Like when we talk about cybersecurity and we talk about crime, are we talking like scams? Are we talking about hijack? Are we all of the above? Where people get their login compromised, those types of things. What is a I'm gonna use air quotes cyber crime?
Yeah, great question. And it really is all the above. So cybercrime is an extremely broad term to describe a way in which a crime could take place online. But it could even be not just online, it could be over your phone getting an SMS message. And there's a wide range in which cybercrime could take place. When I'd say if we're zeroing in on this industry, so with bookkeeping, CAS, accountants, really the vast majority of scams and where we see firms most targeted is around email. And that's an area where we see most of these taking place. That's also backed up by the statistics as well. The FBI released a report last year, which is the ICC, so the Internet Crimes Commission report, and it was looking at the most costly scams to the economy. And it was actually really interesting when you broke down and saw which scams were the costliest. And it was actually surprising seeing the difference in totals. And the most costly scam to the economy was business email compromise. So those email scams, phishing scams, the payroll scams we see so much of, that cost the US economy $2.4 billion in
Wow.
2021. Yeah. And then the next highest scam, which is by far and away the highest, the next highest scam was investment related scams. It was about 1.2 billion. And then it was interesting because also when people talk about cybercrime a lot, really the scam which comes to mind first and foremost is ransomware. Because
Mm.
of the damage that can do. I think everyone's familiar with what ransomware is and has heard of big businesses being taken down by ransomware. But when you looked at that in the report, it was actually a lot lower down. It was still a large amount of money. I think it was 500 million, but a lot less than in business email compromise. And that's really what we're seeing as well in this space is that emails are really the number one target.
Yeah. We have a blog on schoolofbookkeeping.com because we get that question a lot about QuickBooks emails or people getting emails that they're not sure if they're from to it, and we have like four steps to try to dissect an email and see if it
Mm,
is. But these fraudsters are just getting so clever
Mm,
and making it look like, it's legit. It's a legitimate email. I had read an article, and I wanted to get your take about it. That there was with regards to, because some people get an email and they can see, misspellings, grammar mistakes, those types of things. But I read an article that was talking about those things are there intentionally, uh, to actually kind of vet their intended mark, so to speak, right? Like if you're not aware that something's misspelled, or the grammatical errors in an email, that's the kind of person who would actually click on something and give away, sensitive information like their login or social security number. Do you find that is makes sense, or is
mhm.
that in what you do?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think when we're talking about email scams, there's really, I guess if I'm quite broad, there's probably two broad classifications of the kind of email scams that are being sent out. So there is the um, ones which are kind of like indirect mass emails, and those are the ones where a hacker would go on and you can get pretty much online on the dark web. You can get lists of email addresses, and there are basically hacking automation systems. Okay, so the similar as you could use MailChimp to send out marketing emails, hackers have a similar kind of system to send out scam emails. So they can send out hundreds of thousands of these scam emails very, very quickly. And we do see that with some of them, yes, like as you've said, they may have grammatical errors like littered through them to, yeah, I guess almost qualify the lead or qualify the
The,
target for them.
their target, yeah.
Um, yeah, so there's um, there's that aspect. So that's like the broad indirect one. But what we're seeing and what we're seeing on the rise is more direct scams, and that's what we're seeing targeting accountants, bookkeepers, and CAS firms more. Because what would often happen is a hacker would get access to somebody's Office 365. So whether they have coerced or tricked that person into handing over the password, or it may be that they've cracked a weak password. Once they then log in, we're seeing that hackers now are a lot more targeted. Okay, so it used to be that a hacker would get into someone's inbox and they'd send out a mass email blast to all of their contacts just with a ransomware
Mhm.
file. Now they're getting a bit more smarter and more tactical because the payout is larger. And what we're really seeing on the rise is, to use that term earlier, I was talking about business email compromise. So what happens is they've compromised someone's inbox, and then they're targeting specific individuals. So there's a higher payout there. So they'll send an email to the CAS advisor asking them to send payroll to a different account, or asking them to send an
Mm.
invoice to a different account. And I've heard of multiple instances of this, and some transfers, upwards of hundreds of thousands of dollars going to the wrong places.
Wow.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and do you find that, I guess it's part of the challenge is, there's some that are, targeted specifically for one task, and then there's other that are kind of like mining certain data to go to the next level, and trying to determine which one's which is kind of maddening, I guess, from a from an inbox perspective. Like, I can't tell which is what they're actually trying to get at, um, with an email coming in like that. I mean, is that something that you're seeing a
hmm
trend on? Where things are going more towards mining a little bit of information to get to the next phase, or is it more of like a blast, like you were saying, where I just want your login.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, I think there's the two. So there's the blasts which are generic, pretending to be from Intuit, pretending to be from Office 365, trying to get you to hand over your information. But then once they have, so trying to get you to hand over your username or your password. But really, what we're seeing on the rise is the more targeted ones. So once they get into somebody's inbox, then that's when they are a lot more targeted. And there's so much information about us all online. So through LinkedIn, for our company
Mm,
websites, through all of the different areas. And hackers can use that to build up a profile. They also, once they're in someone's inbox, they'll go through and see who they communicate, how they communicate, and then they'll craft the perfect email to get them to transfer to the wrong
yeah,
inbox. And we're also seeing that, I know you spoke earlier about they put in deliberate grammatical errors. But what we're also seeing changes that with some new tools, so with AI tools, it's easier for
yeah.
hackers to write compelling emails without any mistakes at all.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like how are these tools like AI, you know, being leveraged by them? Because it's I'm seeing all this stuff coming, and it's almost like I'm going to use a Dan analogy here. Um, it's like AI is alcohol, right? It enhances the personality of the person using it. So if you're a happy-go-lucky person, get a little alcohol in you, you're a much happier person. But if you're a jerk and you, and you get a little drunk, you get you're an a-hole, right? So in the hands of someone who is a hacker, I can see this being like a. I mean, now they have a lot more tools. There's tools at their disposal. Is that what you're seeing in your industry?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And the main use case and what we've seen is it's been used to, firstly it's been used to, like, I guess, reverse engineer some hacks. So there are some different articles online that are showing how people have used it to say, I'm a software developer, I want to write a protection for this bug, and then they've kind of used it to tell them some weaknesses in some softwares. But another use case that I've seen, and just going back to what I was saying earlier, is using it to craft more compelling conversations. Okay, so for
Yeah,
instance, I think that most people have played around with ChatGPT, got it to write like test emails, write different social posts or whatever, got it to write content, and hackers can use it in the same way. So if they get access to somebody's inbox, they can file in, just like give it some
yeah.
emails for context and be like, okay,
Like,
write me a right, I'm the accountant for Wendy, write me an email requesting an invoice, and it would help that and spit it out.
say this like I would,
Yeah.
and then and then it's undistinguishable from the receiver, whether it was actually written by that person or not. That's man.
Yeah.
I'm getting scared the more I'm talking to you. Uh, so let's talk a little bit about these FTC compliance safeguard rules. There's a deadline looming, which for you is tomorrow, but for everyone in the United States is the ninth. So what is the safeguard rule, and what does it mean to to people in the accounting industry?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So the safeguards rule, so the full name of it is, it's the standard for safeguarding customer information, and really it's there to provide guidelines for businesses on what they should do to protect customer information. So the rule's actually been around for a long time. It was first introduced in 2003, but it was then updated in 2021. And in 2021 is when the FTC really added a lot more meat to the bones, with more direct guidelines about what businesses should and shouldn't do. And as part of that, they also set a deadline for compliance, which has been pushed back, but the new deadline and the current deadline for it is the 9th of June. So that is when firms should be compliant with some of the requirements. So it's not absolutely everything in the safeguards rule. There are certain requirements in there.
So what is that? I mean, the buzz, right, that I'm seeing on social media and things like people that are talking about this, or you're saying, well, this only deals with tax preparation, tax preparers, and things like that. I'm a bookkeeper, or I'm an accountant, accounting professional, CAS provider of services, advisory services. Doesn't apply to me. Is that true, false,
Yeah,
somewhere in between?
yeah, good question. So it's somewhere. Well, I'd say it's more on the false side. So because
Right.
if you look at the definition from the FTC, the definition is quite broad. So I think that might be where some of the um, where this is coming
What
in.
a
Yeah,
definition from the government not being explicit.
yeah. Who'd have thought that? Yeah, because and I think also there's been a lot of education for tax preparers due to the IRS 4557 guidelines, which is about safeguarding taxpayer data, and also there was the change to Form W12 on the PTIN application, where tax agents have to sign off to say they have a data security plan. So there's been lots of education there. But anyway, if we go back to these guidelines, really the rules are that the FTC Safeguards Rule applies to financial institutions. And if you look at their definition of a financial institution, it says that that is a business that is engaged in an activity that is financial in nature. So if you're looking at that, then yes, bookkeeping CAS firms would fall under this because of the nature of their work.
So do they have to have data? Like, do they have to have access to the data, or do they have to have like what would a bookkeeping professional or accounting professional, CAS provider, um, what threshold do they have to cross in order to be considered that financial institution definition? Like, what do they have to have access to the company files, or like if they do like remote support work, like if they go on site, they don't have their data, does that exclude them from these things, or is it more just at any point if you touch and do something financial in nature, like I go in my client's bank feed in QuickBooks Online, does that make me, does that qualify me as maybe
Hmm.
exposing me to these to needing these guidelines?
Yeah, yeah, good question. And
Yeah, because
it's not.
Susan asked the same thing. What about support people? No accounting, no bookkeeping.
Yeah, yeah, good question. And it's about it's not really as explicit as saying whether you hold or whether you um, access it. It's about the security of customer information. So under that broader term, if you were accessing it, then you'd have to secure your access to it. But I think to answer that, I'd like to make another just quote the FTC somewhere else, because what they're saying is that when you're implementing this, your program should be written down and it should be appropriate to the scale and size of your business, the complexity of your business, and the scope of the activities and the information at issue. So, what they're saying is that it should be appropriate to the size of your business. So, if you're not holding the data, if you're not, you're just going into a client to access it, if you're accessing it online for a certain area, then obviously the scale and scope and the complexity of that is far shorter. So you do obviously still need to review your security. You need to consider these things, but it would be far less in depth and involved than if
Right.
you're holding the data.
So what are the like what is the outcome of these guidelines? Like what are they what does a practitioner need to do to be in compliance when it comes to that? Do they have to what do they have to do? Yeah.
Hmm.
Let's
Yeah,
just-
yeah. Great question. That's really the $1 million question. Is okay. So what do I
yeah.
have to do? So I'll drop a link into the chat. So because there is 8 specific requirements. Am I able to do that? Drop the link into the chat.
Yeah. Yeah, if you just either want to put it in the private chat and then Landon can put it
Yep.
in,
Okay.
or if you can
Perfect.
throw it right in the chat either way.
I'll just drop it there.
Perfect.
So yeah. So I've just dropped a link into the chat. So what that is it's from the FTC themselves saying these are the 8 requirements for firms to be compliant with. So really, it's reviewing that, and as I said, taking steps and measures of that, which is appropriate to the size and the scope of your business. Okay, so if you are running, a large multinational company, you've got 500 plus employees. Obviously, you would have to be very involved. But if it's yourself, if you've
Right.
got a small team, then you do still need to do something. You should still obviously consider your security, review the guidelines, take steps for them. But it wouldn't obviously be as long. It's not going to be a 60, 70-page plan.
Yeah. Now here we are, 2 days prior to this guideline, and maybe somebody is looking at this and going, okay, well, maybe I need to do something. Do I have to get it done by this deadline? Right? Like, or what do I got to do? What are the ramifications if I don't get it done by the deadline? What will happen? Am I going to get shut off? Am I going to get fined? What's
Hmm.
the outcome there?
Yeah, great question. And look, there's not like a submissions date, if you will. So there's not like you have to submit what you've done, and it's not as if someone from the FTC is going to be turning up on your doorstep on the 10th with a
No.
not with a
Hello.
clipboard. Yeah, so that it's not going to be policed in that sense. And they haven't as of yet announced any fines for non-compliance. But what we are seeing and what we've seen with other cybersecurity guidelines is that it really gets policed most in the aftermath of a breach. Okay, so it's not
Mm,
so much that we've seen them proactively checking as of yet, but we have seen there have been instances where businesses have been breached, and because they haven't followed the guidelines, because they haven't put in steps to reduce risk, it's often meant that they haven't been compliant with their cyber insurance policy. So I've seen there have been multiple instances where businesses have been breached, lost large sums of money, and because they haven't followed guidelines, because they haven't put data security measures in place, their insurance hasn't paid out. Which, I mean, it makes sense. It's like if you went on a holiday and you left every window open, your contents insurance isn't going to pay out. So it's
yeah.
the same principle. So we've seen people there, and we have also seen in the wake of breaches there have been fines for some larger businesses for not taking the correct steps and following due process.
Got it. So like you said, like you don't have to have automobile insurance until you get in an accident, right? But if you
Yeah.
don't have that insurance, well, then there's ramifications for that when you do, get into
Hmm.
the worst case scenario happens, right?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So, and that's what I'm really trying to stress to firms is that there's the one thing which you shouldn't do is to do nothing. It's about taking a look at these and keep in mind that that quote it should be appropriate to the scale and size of your business, and just start taking smaller steps. Like I'm conscious it's the eve of the deadline now, so there are different steps to take. Maybe everyone on here, if you haven't already started it, wouldn't get everything done by the 9th, but it's about starting that and starting to follow the correct process.
So I think that's part of the $1 million question, right? It's like, you know, as you're saying this, I'm like, I'm getting scared. I should do something. What is the first step to take? Like, where do I begin? Because, you know, a a a government website is just like dropping me off at the deep end deep end of the pool. I need some help, right? Like, how would I be able to take that first step, and who could help me if I wanted that?
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. So I think definitely consult the guidelines. Have a look at those. Also, I wouldn't. Also, this is an area where we're helping firms as well. I'll drop another link into the chat because we do have, because one of the first steps in this is putting together a information security plan, which does encompass a lot of this. So you've got a written information security plan. We've got a template which has been available for a long time to all of our clients, and we are making this available to all firms now. So I've dropped a link in the chat so people could go online and they could download that information security plan, and that would provide the outline for you to start to comply with some of these requirements. So, two of the 8 requirements here are around developing a written risk assessment and also an incident response plan. And the document which I've just dropped into the chat, if you go on and download that, would assist with those couple of requirements.
That's a huge help. I'm like, what, what do I need to, what are my outcomes of this? And that is certainly a great place to start. And John, you're going to join me on the QB Power Hour in July, and we're well aware that that's past the deadline.
Mm.
But that's kind of like what we'll be talking about is like, okay, I missed the deadline. What can I do now? Type of thing. And so um, I think for more information, right? If you want to. Anybody who's watching today, if you want to get more information later in July when we have that webinar, John will be back in his lovely Australian accent. Uh, will be joining us then too.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you wanted to kind of mention, talk about briefly? I know we're just real high level here, talking about these security risks and making everybody on the verge of panic with,
Yeah.
with all of these things. But anything you want to touch on?
Yeah. Look, and I think just really my final comment would be, I think when it comes to cybersecurity and when we look at these requirements, it can be overwhelming. Okay, and I guess like really what I'd want to say, like, and emphasize is that when it comes to cybersecurity, it's about doing something appropriate, like to quote the FTC, appropriate to the size of your business. Okay, you can't just do nothing. You do need to put measures in place. But when it comes to cybersecurity, you can put in place simple, low cost, easy measures and dramatically reduce the risk to your business. Okay, so if we're looking at what one of the biggest risks to businesses is passwords. Okay, 80%, roughly 80% of breaches start with a compromised or hacked password. So putting in place some simple measures and security around that for you and your team, accessing your client information, is going to significantly reduce that risk. Okay, so that's just really what I'd emphasize is that I know that it can seem overwhelming. It's like for me when I sit down and look at my taxes, it's overwhelming. I don't know where to start because I'm not a tax professional. Okay, and I think it's similar
Mhm.
for accountants, for CPAs, bookkeepers, but you're not cybersecurity professionals. So it can seem like there's a different language and different jargon. But just really want to emphasize that there are quick, easy wins that firms can implement. And look, also, this is an area where we do help as a business. I mean, at Practice Protect, this is exactly what we do and where we assist. So if I could just drop one more link into the chat, if anyone does want any more help, if you're not sure exactly where to start, if you want some more guidelines around the requirements, head to our website. You can book in a call with one of our cybersecurity experts, and we can give you some assistance and point you in the right direction at the start.
All right. Well, I don't know whether I should thank you, John, or not, because again, you've scared the Jesus out of me. So I imagine imagine it's like the same for others that are watching, but it is important, right? And then, like you said, uh, the worst thing to do is nothing, and at least we have some breadcrumb trails to help some folks out, and I really appreciate you joining us here today on the workshop. And we'll look forward to everyone joining us next time that we have a workshop. And yeah, Susan, she said, "You're not alone," and she's scared as well. Sky is falling, and I've been a victim of identity fraud, right? And my password's been compromised. I have a tax pin that I have to get every time that I do my taxes because of that. So it's only elevating the fact that these things are out there. Um, and with the state of the world, the way things are with AI and everything, it just makes it more complicated, more scary. But it's good to know that there are companies like Practice Protect that are out there, so that we can feel a little more rest assured that we have our security measures in place so these things don't happen. Uh, John, thank you again for joining us, and everybody who's joined us today on the workshop. And we'll look forward to chatting with you again.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thanks, everyone.